Welcome to Bump Set Chat, the podcast where volleyball professionals come on and share their stories, experiences, and advice. Today from Long Beach, I have Coach Alan Knipe. Welcome.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on. And the way we start things off is we do a few random questions. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So if they played intro songs for coaches, what would your song be?
Oh, wow. Yeah, probably Back in Black.
All right. Nice. Have you ever got to see AC/DC?
I have not, but the only reason why I say that is because this is going to really date myself. But when I was playing at Long Beach, we had control of the intro music. But back then, we had to time out the cassette tape that it actually was perfectly timed. It wasn't as easy as it is now. And the last song, all was in our hitting lines before we played at home, was Back in Black by AC/DC.
Nice. Very cool. All right. Most interesting place you've ever played a match in?
Wow. The list is kind of long, actually. I'm fairly fortunate in that area. I would probably say I'm not exactly sure what year it was. I would think it would be 10, but World League VNL now in Egypt.
Oh, wow.
We played in a pretty big old, just kind of an old cinder block facility, and the FIVB has a minimum requirement, or you get fined for attendance. So the local organizing committees will do all sorts of stuff to get crowds in. All over the world. You'll see different approaches to this, getting kids in or whatever it might be. And in Egypt, they just had a whole bunch of people let out of jail to come watch that were coming in, and they all had to sit a seat apart with a whole bunch of armed guards standing around them. So it was a little unique. It
Yeah.
kind of felt like the longest yard.
Yeah. Excellent. And speaking of the longest yard, what is your favorite movie?
Wow. Well, I kind of once again I would kind of bounce all over the place with this. I was for a long time I was a really big fan and still am, but I just don't think it's as historically accurate as I maybe thought it originally was Braveheart.
Yep.
Really thought Shawshank Redemption was just incredibly well made. But to be honest, I'm not an enormous movie guy, not
Yep.
like maybe even some of the guys on my staff coaches. As far as just some other ones go, just obviously I grew up in that era with just some unbelievably slapstick comedy type stuff where it comes from anything from Caddyshack to Airplane and
Yep.
though anytime those things come on, they'll get my attention to at least watch a few good lines and laugh.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, hey, welcome to the podcast. And first of all, congratulations on another championship. That's amazing.
Well, thank you. It's a it's a super special thing, and you can't ever take it for granted.
Absolutely. All right. So let's go back to the beginning. Where are you from?
Yeah, I grew up going to grade school in high school in Huntington Beach and went to Marina High School, so it's not real far
Yeah.
from Long Beach State.
Nice. And when did you first discover volleyball?
In high school, yeah, and even when I played high school volleyball, I didn't play club. I didn't do any of that stuff. I played football and I played soccer. I came from a really big soccer family with my parents coming from Northern Ireland, and my brothers played soccer. My dad coached soccer. It was all soccer. But I think being the youngest of three boys,
Yeah.
you kind of break your dad down by the third one. And in all reality, I think he just became a little more understanding of the American sports
Mm-hmm.
and started to appreciate them. And then I learned through lessons probably with my brothers. I didn't really ask, could I play other sports? I would just sign up for stuff
Yeah.
and just go do it. And yeah, so I got into it, and it was kind of just another thing to do in high school. Wasn't necessarily something I was looking to do.
And now, looking back, since you first, picked up that ball and played to now where it's, it's your career, amazing coaching career. What is it about it? What is the hook volleyball has on you that's, it's been a huge part of your life now?
You know, I think you could compare it a lot to the guy who drives around with his golf clubs in his car. You know, it's like it's a technical sport that you can never perfect,
Yeah.
so you're always chasing to get better. And if you're a competitor and you have a high standard for yourself, then um, these sports are kind of addictive to, and that's how I got into it as well. You know, once you start to play, it's like, man, I'm a pretty good athlete, I believe, and I'm not very good at this sport. And I have some friends that are pretty good, so like I got to get better fast. And so I think that's one area that you're always looking to improve, and there's always areas to improve. And then the other one is just I just I don't think people understand that aren't teachers or coaches that what what it feels like to really make a connection and make a difference.
Hmm.
You know, so when you that look in a kid's eye when he really figures something out, or seeing a kid maybe struggle, whether it's in volleyball or off the court, whatever, and get some guidance and some support and come back around and show improvement and see the value of team sports and collegiate sports and mentorship and a culture like ours at Long Beach State. um you feel like, in our own little bubble maybe, but you feel like you're making a pretty good difference in a lot of lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, if we go back to the beginning, so after high school,
Yeah.
ended up playing at Long Beach. What was that path like? Was it just, and what made you choose Long Beach to begin with?
Yeah, no, it was an interesting path because I had no intention of playing college volleyball until really late into high school. I was actually really considering playing soccer. It's what I wanted to play. At least
Yeah.
that's what I thought I was going to play. I got a little big for soccer, but I still was playing. But I think that I uh, I ended up playing a year at Orange Coast Junior College before I came to play at Long Beach. But yeah, I had the opportunity to go to a couple of different places and had some really interesting, just recruiting trips and getting to know different people. And I would imagine that most people don't know that like I didn't commit to Long Beach. I actually committed somewhere else first, but they went back and changed their offer.
Yeah.
And it gave me a second chance to rethink what I wanted to do. And I ended up following a guy named Mike D'Alessandro, who was my coach at Orange Coast at the time, or one of the coaches, and he had taken the Long Beach job. And I don't know, but he did the picture he painted for me of what he was trying to do at Long Beach, the type of guys he was trying to bring in. He played at Long Beach himself. There was just something really, really special about what he was trying to do, and it really resonated with me. And besides the volleyball side of it, it was fairly close to home and very, very tight with my family and stuff. And I wanted them to see my matches.
Yeah.
I didn't want it to be a situation where they couldn't get to my matches. And yeah, so that's kind of how I got here. And then you realize, like lots of recruits do, you either realize early on that maybe you didn't pick the right place,
Yeah.
but you also realize early on that you probably did, even if it's tough.
Yeah.
There's that moment your first year in college when things aren't easy. There's an adjustment to college life. There's that adjustment to one, you're playing against guys that are way better than you,
Yeah.
bigger, stronger, more physical, more demanding. You're living on your own, whatever the deal is, and then you hit some of those moments that are difficult, and if you pick the right place, then you put your head down, you grind,
Yeah.
and if you pick the wrong place, you run. And the good thing for me when I hit those moments, and when I hit those moments of just having to compete and having to and get better because I wasn't good enough early on to play, and got had a pretty bad hand injury, and you hit some adversity.
Yeah.
It's nice to know you're in the right place with the right people.
Yeah. And then, during your time there at Beach, what were some of the highlights for you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the easy one is to go straight to that. Our team won a national
Yeah.
championship, and at that time, it was the first one in school history, for the men's
Yep.
sports. Um, but yeah, I mean, the whole thing was amazing. It's the quality of human beings that I played with. They're still some of my closest friends. I see some of them on a very regular basis and talk to all of them at some point on a somewhat regular basis. And there's some of the best material you'll ever see on some group threads that we're on together still. And it's just a very, very close group of guys that came in with a goal in mind. And so in 1989, Long Beach missed the conference tournament. In 1990, Long Beach State went to the NCAA Final Four as the number one seed and lost in the finals.
Yeah.
In 91, we won it. So that was pretty fun. That was a pretty fun group to be around when all that change was going on.
Yeah.
And at the same time, our women's team was winning national championships at that time too. So it was a pretty special time to be around Long Beach State. So yeah, I think that the easy is the success to point that out, but really the things that matters most is the relationship that have lasted a lifetime.
Yeah, absolutely. And then after college, you played pro on the beach side and over in Europe. So there was and you played beach with fours.
Yeah. Yeah. I did a little bit of everything, right? Like everybody does when they first come out. I actually joined the national team for a short period of time, and back then you couldn't do both. You
Oh,
couldn't
okay.
you could not be on the national team and play professionally. So you're making literally $150 a month, and
Wow.
living we had a house in San Diego that had I don't know, must have been about seven guys that lived in this
Oh
this
boy.
old Victorian style, looked like a fraternity house. Um, and once it's a wonderful experience, and great to be in that gym. But your goal is to try to be around something special, and to be hopefully make at that time it would have been the 96 Olympics in Atlanta. And the conversations are not easy. I've been on
Yeah.
both sides of this now of having this conversation as a head coach, and but back then having conversations with the staff and having some opportunities to go play in Europe for money, some decent money
Yeah.
actually, or stay and kind of grind it out. And the thing that I respected most about the national team staff at that time is we had some really good discussions and finding out it's never easy to hear you're not quote unquote good enough, but hearing where they were going, what that position I was playing looked like, what the depth chart looked like, it made a lot more sense for me to go try play in Europe and do that. And I thank them for that. So I had a great time playing in Italy, played a little bit in Belgium, played some FIVB two-man beach because back then there was a crazy rule that you had to be on the national team to represent the USA in the FIVB
Oh
tournaments.
wow.
Yeah, it made no sense. This was way back in the dark ages when most people were still playing AVP.
Yeah.
They were trying to get the FIVB up and running, and then so did a little of that. To be honest, that wasn't something I was super serious about. And then had the opportunity to play fours, which was great. Play with some of these super super famous volleyball players from my past and from USA Volleyball's past, and you got a chance to travel around the country playing four man, which was just an absolute
I
blast to
bet.
play. And while I did that, I was able to coach at the same time because it wasn't so demanding.
Yeah.
It was, to be honest with you, to a certain degree, it was more like it was it was more like a traveling performance than it was a competition. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, like when you got to the finals, everybody or the semis, everybody was playing in those to get to win, but there was a lot of it that what was more of a performance.
Yeah.
You had to play if you weren't playing in the semis or you weren't playing in the finals, you didn't win the semis or you weren't playing in the finals. Sometimes you had to play like the ESPN 3 game on Sunday morning on a
Oh.
with no one there because they needed more TV footage and that there was some things that didn't necessarily feel like it was a competition all the time.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
yeah, once again, the guys that played on that tour were great. It was a lot of fun.
nice. And then, you just talked about, you're doing some, sort of, that's when you started coaching. So what made you get involved in coaching? Knowing that you mentioned earlier, your dad was coaching you for many years as well. So it's
Yeah.
in your blood.
Yeah, but I never thought I would do it. I actually told everyone I wouldn't do it. It wasn't I had anything against it. It just didn't seem to me like I wanted to deal with the some of the other things that went along with coaching. And I had a really, really great friend who unfortunately just recently passed away. His name was Tom Hermstead, and he was the athletic director at Golden West. And I had come home from Italy and was rehabbing my knee and actually having knee surgery, and I had the opportunity. I don't know if I have that in the exact right order, but anyway, something like this. Um, he offered me the head coaching job at Golden West Junior College, and so I did that for 2 years with a couple of really good friends of mine, and we ended up the second year won their first state championship. And it was at that time the job opened up at Long Beach State for the assistant job that I wasn't necessarily looking for. And my former head coach then reached out and said, "Do you want to do this?" And I did. And I took the job knowing at that point that was the first time I knew that if I take this job, then I'm kind of thinking about going in this profession.
Yeah.
When I was coaching at Golden West, it was part-time. I was still playing a lot on the beach. I was doing all sorts of stuff. But going into the Long Beach job full time, taking that job, I knew it was going to be a little bit more of a leap into the career. And I thought, well, if I'm gonna do this, that's I get to do it at my alma mater, then let's see what it's like.
Absolutely. And the one thing with coaching, it's not an easy career. It's volatile up and down. It's not something that, okay, I'm going to do this for 10 years, I'm set.
Yeah.
It is, and the impact it has on the family too. If you're trying to start a family.
There's all of that is true. You better marry the right person if you're a coach. Well, you better marry the right person in life. I'll tell you that makes your life a lot easier. But yeah, the marrying marrying my wife Jennifer, who loves sports and went to Long Beach State and just played volleyball in high school herself and just loves sports in general. Um, she's been along for the ride and enjoying it. And at times I joke, I think she's more competitive about some things than I am. But that's a big deal. And that in those moments later on in life, you don't realize when you fast forward and you're on the road recruiting, or you're on the road on matches, or you're coaching the national team, or you're coaching the junior national team, or whatever you're doing, and you're away from home, knowing that the person that's there with the kids when we had kids is 100% supportive. It doesn't make it easier all the time. There's still rough moments of just the schedule, my wife worked as a teacher as well, but I don't think we ever got it to any of those moments that we felt like maybe a guy changed professions, or I didn't sign up for this, or I didn't, and makes your life a lot easier. So, but it's a very, very difficult profession, especially when you're trying to get up on your feet.
Yeah, and especially today, you're more than a coach today. You've got the business side of things that you're like. When I was talking to Dan Meske, he goes, once it gets for if I start getting boggled down with all the other stuff and not coaching, I think that's when it's time is just move on.
Yeah, and Dan, well, first of all, Dan's awesome. He's going to do very well. He's not going to have to move on. He's got it dialed at Louisville, and they're lucky to have him. And he's going to do a great job following Danny. But I would say that the way I explained it over the years is that it's kind of like just a pie graph. When you first get into volleyball, the pie is almost full of coaching volleyball or doing something volleyball related, watching video, breaking video, recruiting, watching kids. It's all volleyball, volleyball, volleyball. And you think becoming a head coach is this wonderful job, but if you look at a pie graph, the smallest piece of that sometimes is coaching volleyball. And you got to be ready for that. So the job and it's gotten more like the pie's gotten more filled in with more things other than volleyball each year I've coached.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look like that trend's changing right now. So, you're very much more like a CEO today of a company than you are of just a volleyball coach or a coach of any sport. And you have to be able to manage people, and you have to be able to communicate, and you have to be able to delegate, and you have to be organized, and you have to have a plan, and you have to be able to communicate that and get people to buy in.
Yeah, absolutely. And adding into that, coaching from the coaching aspect, it is so much more. What I've discovered talking to coaches like yourself, and then actually doing some coaching last year, it's more than just X's and O's. There's the mental aspect that you're dealing with these kids, and it's just like, holy cow! It's not just you move your feet this way, move your hands this way. No, it's so much more.
Yeah, there's no doubt. A good program that has a healthy culture is going to have lots and lots of contacts, small contacts with their players all the year long. And those contacts are not just about, your passing platform or your toss and your serve. It's about how are you doing? It's about where are you right now? What happens if you're talking to it's easy if you're talking to the starting outside sometimes. But what happens if you're talking about to the third or the fifth, or what happens if you're talking about the third middle, the fourth middle, or the second libero, whatever it might be. How are you how are you keeping them connected to the program, understanding that they need to understand their role, but not accept their role of that has to stay. Like they want to push themselves. They want to push us to take that starting spot, but at the same point that they don't have control over necessarily who starts.
Yeah,
But the other thing, how well can you communicate why they're not starting necessarily and what they have to do at the same time can keep them connected to the greater good of the team. And I'd love to say there's an easy way to do that. And everybody takes a different road in this area. Um, for me, there's no substitute for experience.
yeah,
You've failed at it. You've failed at it. You've succeeded at it. You've failed at it. Lessons learned, good and bad, from wins, from losses, from good decisions and bad decisions. And if you can continue to really, really believe in a growth mindset that you got to get better in every area each year, including your ability to relate, communicate with your players, then you're going to get there. And the other thing is they're going to trust you. And that's the thing that I want most. I want my guys to know when they play for me that I'm here for them in every area of their life.
yeah,
I'll be there for them in every area of their life when they're done playing for me. Um, but it's not just about volleyball, and there's so many other things then that it can affect. Because if you really think about it, like Long Beach State is we've been so fortunate to have our alum are so decorated in the sport, and we're so proud of all of them. But statistically speaking, most of them stop playing volleyball when they're done
yeah,
at Long Beach State. So it's super important to understand that statistically speaking, the group, the majority of your group are guys that they're part of this machine, and they're helping, and they're maybe even contributing, but it's not going to go anywhere else after this. So are you helping them be better, better employees, better fathers, better husbands, better sons, better whatever it might be? Are you helping with that? And we try really, really hard here to expect greatness in every area of our lives together, and try to be really open and honest and direct with each other.
excellent. And speaking of communicating to your players, I was just up in Ottawa last week for the women's VNLs, and I got to see Gio Guidetti, the new coach for Team Canada. And while the girls were just stretching before the game, I saw him. He walked around to each one of the players, shook their hand or a high five, and just had a few words to them. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I think that learning what each player needs, right? And I'm sure for coach, he's trying to figure that out too right now.
Yeah,
But there's usually something you pick up pretty early on. Is it something in their blocking, hitting, passing, pre-serve prep, pre-serve block and defense prep, getting ready to come off the bench, be a serving sub, whatever it might be. Pretty early on, you've established some roles. So, getting before the game of getting that quick physical contact, and then a pump of, hey, ready to go here as a serving sub. Hey, ready to go here, as we're going to double sub, or hey, let's make sure that, we're platform out early first, whatever, one thing so that you can shorten their list, because players, as players are new, teams are new, coaches are new, the list can get too long of what I have to do, and then you get stuck.
yeah,
You have to be freed up to be able to play the game. and read the game. So making that list, pre-serve list, as short as possible, as black and white, and not wordy, just a bullet. So as a coach, if you can have your own language with your players that's always positive about what they're going to do, then you want to reinforce that. And then hopefully, I don't know if you watched after the match, but I would imagine he probably did the same thing after the match too.
Yeah.
I walked the circle, gave a couple of reinforcements to
Yep.
each player. And he's doing a good job right there. He's getting out of the gates of building some trust.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And now, if you look back to your first year at Long Beach head coach, what advice would you have for first year Alan?
Uh, yeah, I mean, like I could write a novel on this. But I think that if I would go back, I would say, yeah, probably continuing to trust, you know, trust your inner beliefs, your core of what you really believe in the game. Because I think what happens is that I played here, and then I was a 5-year assistant coach. And things are, the machine is rolling at that time. And it's not like the team wasn't good. And there's a lot of things that are rolling down the track that are working, or at least successful. Maybe not, to the level I want it to be in every area, but and then you get the opportunity to take over. And I think what happens is most coaches who take over a program, especially if you take like the head coach I took over had been here for 22 years,
Yeah.
so like he did a really good job. He won the school's only national championship at that point. And so what are you going to change? So that you're left with this thought of, okay, either I'm going to do everything like coach did,
Yeah.
or I'm going to do nothing like coach did. I'm going to let everybody know I'm the new head coach, or I'm going to do somewhere in between. And that's probably where I was. I definitely didn't do everything like Ray did, and I certainly didn't want to come in and just say, hey, like nothing Long Beach State's ever done in the past is good. Let's
Yeah.
blow it all up. Um, but I think where I would have spent more time is not just the volleyball stuff. I think that as a young head coach at that time, I was so committed to like, hey, we just got to get good. We got to get good fast. And I think if I could go back, I would spend a lot more time as I do now, as I have for 15 years, 20 years now, um, getting better connections. And I think part of that came from being a young head coach, knowing like I was a really young head coach. I just was 31 years
Oh,
old.
wow.
And you're not that far away from them, and you're trying to prove you're not the assistant.
Mm-hmm.
So you build some space almost between you and the players, and then let the assistant coaches fill in some of that space. And if I could go back and do that again, I would reset the culture to a lot more like it is today, on the way I interact with the players, for the last 20 years. And there's no one there to tell you those things when you're figuring out. You just, as a head coach, especially back then, and you just get dumped in the deep end of the pool and say
Yeah.
swim. And especially in men's volleyball back then, mid-major school, not a lot of funding, not a lot of support, not a lot of publicity, in the country. So, and you're fundraising, you're recruiting, you're at times back then I was playing in practice because we didn't have enough
Oh,
guys.
wow.
And it's not necessarily at practice. They should on the road. Like
Yeah.
we'd be on the road, and we wouldn't have enough guys, to because of the libero and stuff. So you'd fill in on the second side, and there's so many things going on. Um, but now, yeah, I think if I look back, that would be what I would say.
All right. Couple of things off that. One, being that assistant coach, when Matt Ulmer was on, he described it when he was the assistant coach as, I'm that happy, fun uncle. I'm not, having those hard discussions. So everybody likes me. Transitioning to now the head coach, where you were the assistant coach there, to now the head coach, that's an adjustment too.
It is an adjustment, and you want there to be a balance. And but like anything, it's like working for people um, that come in, new people to maybe an organization or whatever it might be. Respect is earned,
Yeah.
and where people struggle, whether it's in the workplace or a coach. um, is when they come in and they demand you to respect them because the title says X, Y, and Z.
Right.
And so I think that yeah, I just think that you gotta you gotta show through your daily commitment to what you're doing and your consistency, how you go about your business, that people want to follow.
Yep.
And you can't ask people to follow. You know, they will follow or they won't on their own decision. You can't ask them to do it.
Yep. And speaking of culture, you talked a little bit about the culture. How would you describe the culture at Long Beach today?
Yeah, our culture is the backbone of everything that we do. Um, we spend a lot of time with it. We talk a lot about we communicate. We try to build trust. Um, where there's a lack of fear of conflict within the program. So, you know, it's not like on the floor you want to hear a whole bunch of guys yelling at each other. That's not necessarily what I'm talking about, but it's you can't hold things in. You know, you can't hold grudges, you can't hold things in, you can't have a fear to talk to the coaches. And, you know, it's not always perfect. There's some guys that hasn't always been the case, and then
Yeah.
those are usually the guys that it doesn't work out, you know, but for the most part, the program is built on being all in, something bigger and greater than just one person, and there's value in that. Even if you're not starting, of having an expectation of greatness in every area of your life, and then really buying into the idea of the trust account. That in every opportunity you get is an interaction with a teammate to teammate, teammate to coach, coach to teammate, whatever it might be. You're either you're putting a deposit or you're making a withdrawal from the trust account.
Yeah.
And we talk about that all the time. And then this leads us to the ability to lean on competing with like the power of the unit. You know, we use a lot of references to the military, and part of that is just because, you know, my brother was a Marine pilot, so I have a little privy to it. And for I want to make sure I make a huge disclaimer. I'm not comparing playing volleyball to being in the military.
Right.
I'm just saying that there's a lot of camaraderie and team and the unit that we can learn from the military,
Yeah.
because their situation is real world. Their situation is life or death. Ours is not.
Right.
Okay. But that being said, one of the things we talk about the young, you know, infantry soldier who ends up in a horrible situation of war, and why would he be willing to come out of that, you know, that foxhole and shoot and possibly kill someone? Is that and that kid might have been 6 months ago going to high school in any town USA.
Yeah.
And where did that come from? Where did he go from that kid who was at the, you know, playing football, you know, 6 months ago, to possibly taking someone's life? And it's not that he wants to, but it's not that it what we talk about all the time, is that it's not for the hate of what's in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
It's for the love of what's behind him, is what we want to take from that. Not and in no sense do we want to glorify war or taking someone's life, but in that moment, why does that happen? And it happens, he becomes incredibly courageous, incredibly brave, and willing to do his job because of how much he loves what's behind him, that unit behind him.
Yeah.
So how can we just steal a little bit of that with how we go about our business?
Nice. And now going back to when you played there to taking over the being the coach there, was that culture there, or was that part of your core values growing up that you sort of,
Yeah.
put in and infused into what it
Yeah.
is today?
That's a great question. I haven't got that one before. We get a lot of questions about culture, but not like that. The culture, the bedrock of our culture at Long Beach State was there, meaning the brotherhood,
Yeah.
the love, the respect, and the ability to have um, the ability to grind and have grit about what we do. You know, willing to fight for every point, willing to do whatever it takes to play our best. The communication, the transparency, to maybe communicate our vision a little bit better has definitely been something that I've brought in from lots of different areas of my life, whether it be my family upbringing from my father, my mom, my dad were huge impacts on me, my brothers, to the opportunity to leave Long Beach State and coach the national team for those 4 years and then come back. um, you know, you have that. very unique opportunity in life as a coach. You see lots of coaches the second time around, they get to another school, as they keep moving, it gets better and better and better. I had this unique opportunity to stay at the school for a long period of time, but I took a long break and I got to come back. And for the most part, everybody was gone that I
Yeah.
had coached before. So I'm really getting like, it's really 2.0 for me. And so implementing a lot of the things that I'd learned along the way and had an opportunity to reflect being away from the program that I'd like to do different, whether it was something that I had picked up with the national team or
Hmm.
something I just knew I wanted to change. I knew when I got back in 2013 that I definitely wanted to do some things significantly different, and this was the perfect opportunity.
All right. I feel like you're looking at my question sheet because right now my next question was going to be how, what was your path to, coaching Team USA?
Yeah, I really think that's more probably a question for Doug Beal, but I don't know. I guess I look back now and all the years of helping, coaching the youth team, the junior team, the Pan Am Cup team, the all the things you do over the years, to help you. So running lots of development camps, being highly involved with that. I guess you prep yourself for it, but that was never my intention when I was doing it. One, I loved representing USA. I thought that on the world stage, it's just such a, or even in the zone, it's just such a wonderful thing to put on the flag and represent your country. And I thought that was special. So I really enjoyed it. But there's also getting the opportunity to get the best kids in the country their
Right.
age to know you a little bit in that situation can obviously only help your own university too. So I think everybody has that reason in there somewhere. It might not be the number one, but it's important. And when the job became available, I think that I had done enough things to be on that short list. And when Doug offered me the job, um, how can you say no to the opportunity to take in Team USA potentially to the Olympics?
Yeah, absolutely. And what lessons did you take from that international game and coaching at that level back to beach, like you said,
Yeah.
2.0?
Yeah, I think what was best about that is that I didn't do both jobs. I wasn't the national team coach and Long Beach State. I took
Right.
a lead, and when the guys are playing overseas at that time, and you pop over there and you visit the guys, but there is a decent amount of time you're here and you're preparing for the summer, but you're also preparing for what is it that why are we going to be better this summer than last? How are we going to take a bigger step ready for the Olympics? How's this program evolving? You have a lot of time to spend on that, and you don't have that time in college. You're
Right.
always the year goes on all year, you have them all year, then you're right into recruiting, you're fundraising, boom, you're back, and it just keeps repeating itself. So I think I had a lot of time, and it wasn't necessarily I was sitting there, logging lots of information for Long Beach State, but I was spending a lot of time really trying to get ready. In getting ready for the Olympics, you're getting ready to shorten the list and because the margins are so thin at that level, but you're trying to be as concise as you possibly can. You're trying to lean on what it is the culture really means and how you're going to select the group. Well, that byproduct of all that preparation left me the perfect handbook of how I wanted to start the next year when I went back. Because for me, it was always going to be a 4 year deal. I know that's not what Doug Beal wanted necessarily wanted 8 years. But for me, it was only going to be four because I was awfully young doing both jobs. When I
Hmm.
started there and I started there, I was in my early 40s, and there's not thousands of jobs out there in men's volleyball.
Right.
So I wasn't about to stay the second quad and then have to resign at Long Beach State. I just
Yeah.
had put too much time in. It was where I wanted to live, where I wanted to coach, and so that's kind of how I went about it. So I always knew there was the London Olympic Games were going to be it. So having all that stuff building up for London was also almost dually prepping for the fall at Long Beach State in 13.
Yeah. And how did your perspective on leadership and pressure evolve after coaching at that, Olympic level?
Yeah, I think, well, experience is experience. You're around. I have so much respect for the athletes I had the opportunity to coach. One, if you're playing on the national team, never mind that you get to the Olympic Games. If you're one of the 12, you're very elite. And you're elite for a reason. You're special athletically. You're probably incredibly self-motivated. You're high volleyball IQ. Just they come from all sorts of different backgrounds and different universities, and I just had so much respect. And you're dealing with these top 10 percenters. We talk all the time at Long Beach about you're a top 10 percenter, you're an 80 percenter, or you're a bottom 10 percenter. And the 80 percenters are the guys that most teams littered with. They come to practice, they work hard, they do there's not a lot you can critique, but there's not a whole lot of above and beyond that's happening. I'm looking for extra reps constantly. I'm looking to get better nutrition, more in the weight room. What can I possibly do? Those are the top 10%. And of course, the bottom 10 percenters are the program killers that you have to get into that. You have to move them out of that group up,
Yeah.
or you have to move them out. On the national team, you don't have bottom 10 percenters. It's
Right.
very, very rare that you have one of those guys. You have a decent amount of 80 percenters, but an incredibly high level percentage of top 10 percenters from all these programs. Therefore, it forces everybody to be better because watching video with the national team guys is is incredibly gratifying because they're so in tuned and they have great information. And then you're also talking about a whole bunch of guys that might have been playing against these opponents and or maybe they were teammates with this guy,
Right.
in Europe. So what I learned is the collaboration is super important and giving a lot of respect to how knowledgeable these guys are. At the same time, you are the head coach, so you have to lead and you have to make decisions. You have to be willing to make a decision that's not necessarily the one that everyone likes or someone likes, and um, but there's that fine balance. So I think what I really took out of it was kind of polishing up the ability to communicate with high achieving athletes, of dealing with guys with incredibly big time goals and sometimes egos, but I don't
Yeah.
mean that in a negative way. Lots of external things going all the time that a big contract is right around the corner, or a big injury just happened, and how are we going to rehab back? And you're also at that time you're dealing with marriages and kids and all sorts of things in their family life that they're trying to balance. And when you're done with that and you come all the way back into the college ranks, then and there's a lot of those areas that I just mentioned that are taken off the board because you're not going to deal with those.
Right.
But you've dealt with it at that level, that it makes this level a little bit easier to deal with, and it also really helps you with the very, very best of the best that you get to coach at the college level, because they're very similar to a lot of the guys you have with the national team.
Yeah. And speaking of that Olympic team you coached, I actually had Matt Anderson on a while back. What a phenomenal guy.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, Matt was one of I got to coach Matt at the Pan Am Cup
Oh,
before I
okay.
coached the national team, and he wasn't on the national team at the time. And then I was still at Long Beach. And then when I got the job, and he that was his first real time, his first real year going into World League and all that kind of stuff. He was a young buck for us, but what a very special, not just everyone sees the volleyball side of Matt, but what a very special human being.
Yeah, absolutely. So now coming back to the beach, you guys play in a pretty cool place, the Walter Pyramid. What makes that place so special to play in and coach in?
Well, first of all, obviously it's so iconic, and it's a wonderful home court advantage. Like there's nothing like it, with the 17 stories high and the lights in the four corners, and we have a huge fan base behind us, and so it's very different. I love that side. I know that's not necessarily what everybody else feels about it when they come to it, but it's a great environment. The way it's built, it has the seats go up like a Lamborghini's doors, and so it can create an amazing amount of floor space. We can put 9 courts down
Oh, wow.
and have camps and fundraisers, you name it. And then we dropped all those seats, and all of a sudden it's tight around it, and It's a big place, but it's not too big for men's volleyball. So when it's packed and we sell it out all the time and it's rocking in there, it's like no other. The Our fans are amazing, the sport is amazing, and I think that it's just the most special place to play in the country.
Nice, very cool. And now, you've spoken about, treating all the players equally, regardless of their age. How does that shape the team dynamic and player development?
Well, let me back up. I'm not sure that you can treat them all equally. I think it's a perfect goal. I don't know if it's attainable. I think that, first of all, you try the best you possibly can to be fair with every single guy. And because of the differences of how long guys have been in the program and maybe the roles they're in, things kind of ebb and flow.
Yeah,
I think that we're close to being as equal as you possibly can. And on everything we have the ability to be equal in, we are.
yeah,
Um, but I think that as long as you're being honest and you're being fair with everybody is the best thing. What we try to do is, one, we don't talk in terms of freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. That's a college label that we choose not to buy into. So we treat them like it's a professional team or it's
hmm,
the national team, and you either made our team or you're not on our team, but you're not a freshman or first year, or you need to prove yourself by setting up or doing my laundry or doing like, we're not going to do any of that stuff,
yeah,
right? You're either on our team or you're not. Just historic. I mean, for years now, and it's a wonderful thing. There hasn't been a whole lot of like that hazing
yeah,
stuff that used to go on in college sports and all sports, but a lot of college sports where you just absolutely but there's still a side of it that if you keep making sure that you do everything by age, then you're kind of mentally hazing almost, right?
yeah,
Where it's you're not at a level of this person or you don't deserve this. And so by the end of a season, a freshman is beat down.
right.
And I just have never really understood that, even if you looked at it from a purely volleyball standpoint, at some point you're going to need some of these freshmen on the court as the years go on. Like this year, we ended up with, four true freshmen starting in the Final Four. Well, if you're going to beat them all down, how are they going to be ready for these moments? You need to bring them
Yeah,
along. You need to make them feel part of things. It doesn't mean a smart first or second year player figures out he's getting treated incredibly well in this program. Then they tend to go out of their way anyway to do extra things. Maybe
right.
they do the gym a little bit early to set up the nets. Maybe they do clean the floor. Maybe they do whatever it might be. You start to see this ownership on their own, and it's not because it's demanded of them because they're young. It's because of the pride they have in the program.
Yeah,
And I really think that's a big part of the success we have is that the guys that are 18 or 19 years old are treated like the same as the guys that are 22, 23 years old. And that's not necessarily the case in a lot of programs.
yep, that's true. And now, speaking of the players you're bringing into, beach, what are some of the qualities you look for in those potential athletes that may be a candidate to play come play for you?
Yeah, first of all, like you can say that you want a good kid, you want a good student, and those are all true things. Let's just come back to them for a second.
Yeah,
First of all, you have to identify what the needs are of the program. What are you looking for? And some of it's easy. I need a middle. I need an outside. We need a setter. Or, um, or you see a kid sometimes, and this is probably where you look back, you talk about failing to succeed, and that is when you've passed on kids in the past and you realize they were the best athlete or the best all-around volleyball player that you could have gotten, but they didn't fit into quote unquote the position you wanted them, so you went somewhere else. And then you realize later on that you wish you'd got that kid.
yeah,
Like, and maybe he's the kid who's hurting you right now, in a match. So I think there's a couple of things then you look at. You're looking at something physical. So you're looking at the size, you're looking at the arm, you're looking at the platform, you're looking at the ability to set the ball, you're going to dig the ball, serve the ball, whatever it is. You're looking for something physical. And then, you're also looking for a lot of the other attributes that come along with that, right? What type of kid are they? What is their body language like? What is the potential of their body type, physicality wise, to be able to handle playing volleyball there, a lot of college volleyball players are going to play more volleyball in 1 year in college than they did in a couple of years of club and high school.
Yeah.
And they're asking a lot of their volleyball. They're asking a lot of their body. And then what kind of family do they come from? How do they lead? How do they bring other people along with them? There's lots of different things. But the thing that, right away that's going to pop out on a kid is going to be something he's doing. Like there's times that you're in the gym recruiting and you're watching one court and someone behind you hits a ball, you hear it and you turn around like, who hit that ball?
Yeah.
Like, I want to know who hit that ball. So, we're looking for that. And then obviously we want, going back to what I said earlier, statistically speaking, most of the kids are not going to go on. Lots and lots of our guys do, which makes me very happy. But if they are they going to take school very, very serious? We're the highest GPA on campus for any men's team sport. 73% of our athletes are academic all-stars.
Oh, wow.
We want to do both, so what are their grades going to look like? And what is their club and high school coach going to say about them when we talk to them? And that is what kind of, you don't have to be, not everyone can be a captain, but everyone can be a leader
Yeah.
and everybody can lead. So we want as many leaders as we possibly can find. So how can we find that guy? Do you have a extroverted personality or a very introverted personality? Those things are important. What happens after a little bit of adversity? You get aced, you hit a ball out, you miss your
Hmm.
serve. How quickly, because everyone responds, but it's about how quickly you respond. What is the response time? The best athletes I've ever been around, the response time gets shorter and shorter and shorter.
Yeah.
Not that it doesn't matter, it just doesn't matter right now.
Yeah.
And I got to get on to the next point. So those are some of the things that we would look for.
All right. Yeah, when I talked to Kirsten Barenthal Booth, she had an interesting take. She was talking about when she was looking at kids when they go to, club tournaments or whatnot. She goes, I want to see how that kid acts when they get pulled out, when
Right.
they lose a game and they're talking to their parents. That's what I'm looking for. It's like, oh,
Uh,
that's really, a good thing to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, there's absolutely no doubt because it's going to happen. It's going to happen, especially at the college level. It's going to happen. You're going to get pulled in or out. You're going to have to deal with that ding to your ego at some point.
Yeah.
And let's be honest. We don't want people that are okay with it. That there's a difference between, but there is when emotion floods through a person's body, you deal with it with two different ways. It's going to be either determination or frustration.
Yeah.
And frustration is horrible for sports and terrible for volleyball. You see that kid looking at their shoes, they're standing at the end of the bench, they're, trying to interact with their parents across the court of how wrong the
Yeah.
coach is. Or you're or you're dealing with the kid who's like, man, right now I got to play better, I got to pass better, I'll play harder, I'll talk more. They come out, they're not happy about it, but they're the biggest fan of the person who just went into their spot,
Yeah.
standing closer to the coaches, not further. Still invested in the game itself. They're fired up for their team to win or whatever it might be. Yeah, all those things absolutely matter because you want good human beings around and you want to stack your gym full of those. And the longer you do it, like I've done this for a while now, I get to choose who I spend time with. Why
Yeah.
would I not choose really, really good people that to be around all of the time? I don't want to bring that into my gym. I'm the one who's going to have to deal with that. Our
Yeah.
team's going to have to deal with it on a regular basis. So we try really, really hard to not bring that into our gym.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's lots of young players that listen to your podcast, and I would imagine most of the coaches come on here will have their own version of it, but it's the same message.
Excellent. And speaking of surrounding yourself, I had Nick McRae, and he was talking about he has only beach people around him, and that makes him be successful. And again, like I've had Mason Briggs, Dustin Watton, and Taylor Crabb. All of them say the same thing, and it's just like it's all based off what the culture you've built there, and it's pretty amazing.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, there's there's um there's something special really about our campus and our volleyball program, but I think there's a lot of reasons for that. One, I think there's a lot of really good people who've been involved in it over the years. Okay, but think we're also the product of some really good luck of where our campus is located. When most of the guys are done playing, they tend to stay within about an hour's drive of our campus, whether they live in San Diego
Yeah.
or they live in LA. They they can get to our game in an hour and a half. And so therefore they come to a lot of games, they come to a lot of events, they come to the golf tournament, they come to the different events. I think we do a really good job as a program of giving them lots of reasons to come back and have touch points with the program. That being said, it's turned into something really bigger than ever I could ever imagine. We have one, it's amazingly good financial support for the program, but more importantly, it's just the true support for the program. And because the program spends so much time around each other, then I think that as time goes on, you realize I really like these guys a lot, even after college. And when you have a choice like me to hire, I hire Long Beach State because who better to recruit and who better to train these guys than guys that have already walked in their shoes. And so my entire staff is Long Beach State, and that's by choice. And does it have to be? Have I always had every single guy at Long Beach State? No. And so I've had some really good people that are not Long Beach State, but by and large, I've hired Long Beach State, and I don't regret it. And I think it's part of the special part of our program.
Nice. And now, for game day, do you have any rituals, pregame things that you need to do?
Absolutely. I don't know how much of them I would get into, but no, I think what I am, I think that if you were to ask any of the players that you've had on or in the future, you asked it, is that I like to call it system, right? I'm a very system person. I'm a system coach. I like to teach in systems. I like to have systems about how we're going to watch video. And so whether it's routine or standards or whatever you want, superstitions, whatever you want to call it. I think there's a lot of comfort in routine. As a dad, and my wife and I were, and this is 100% coming from my wife, by the way. When it comes to she was a young elementary school teacher, a lot of times kindergarten for a long time. And with our boys, just watching how great she was with the routines, and how comforting it was for the boys because of their routines. And the guys I deal with aren't much different, to be honest
Yeah.
with you. There's a lot of comfort, and there's a lot of comfort with me. So, yeah, I don't know how much I would get into the nitty-gritty with it, but yeah, I mean, there's nothing I don't do the same on game day, whether it's in the fall and we're going to play, or whether it was in Columbus a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
I'm very routine on game day.
All right. And now this past season, you had, a unique opportunity to coach a kid, Moni Nikoloff. How was that experience? Knowing you coached, you had his brother there as well, Alex. What was that experience like? What was your take on the kid? For
Oh, it was phenomenal.
17.
Yeah. Yeah, phenomenal. And not just as a volleyball player, just he embodied everything you want a guy in our program, to have, and that is he came in with incredibly high expectations for himself and for our team. He expected greatness in every part of what he did. There was always a very good chance he was going to do what he did, and that is be here for a year and move on. And he took care of business in the classroom, which I really, really appreciated. He did everything you asked in that way. The weight room, he was unbelievably gracious with everyone who wanted his time, which people wanted that at an alarming rate all season long. But ultimately, he was here to train, get better, and play volleyball. And as a head coach, I'm fortunate that I got the chance to deal with Moni later in my career, after I've had the chance to build up, because the expectation of what he had for himself and what the volleyball world had for himself, it would have been really easy to bring him in, going back to what I said earlier, and say, hey, you're a freshman, right?
Right.
To do X, Y, and Z, and box him in. And I actually had the exact opposite of that plan. As far as in the fall, I was gonna have some guardrails on some stuff I want to do, but I was going to be fairly aggressive to letting him go. Let's see what we can do with this guy, with his size, his optically looking at him, it doesn't pass the eye test that he's a setter, right?
Right. He's a
You were to
middle.
walk, he's probably an opposite, really, an
Yeah.
international opposite. Like if you were to watch him go, man, this kid's got a big arm. He's a big kid. He can serve. Most of the time, he's not going to be your setter. That being the case, he can get the balls that are most setters in the country for the last many, many years are not going to go get.
Yeah.
So it changed all sorts of things for us of where we wanted to pass the ball, how we wanted to pass the
Right.
ball, what we tried to do offensively, making sure our players were expecting he was going to get a ball that looked like he wasn't going to get it. But I wanted to open up that creativity and see how much we could pull out of that position. And then knowing that the relationship with him was so good and the communication was so good that if we asked him to tailor some stuff or tone some stuff down or whatever, do a little bit more, um, he would do it. And I think if you watch him as the year went on, he did a lot of that. I think that the finals and the final four, for that matter, was a perfect example of that. That there was at times there was lots of stuff that people had seen all year, and there was a decent amount of times that he was just flat out being a great setter with a really good plan for the finals, not necessarily doing a lot of the things he had done early in the season. And that showed his growth. So yeah, it was a lot of fun to coach him and his brother, and he falls in line with those guys like TJ and Taylor and guys that are super enjoyable that they're mindset wise, they're here with you presently and they're doing everything they can, but they know where they're going.
Yeah.
For sure, they know where they're going. And it's just it's really enjoyable.
Nice. And now, he doesn't, how can I put this? He's not able to set the balls he is unless you guys have a really great pass and serve receive.
Yeah.
And that makes running that offense so much easier. For those young coaches, any advice on how they can make their teams be a better serve and passing team? Is it just repetition, repetition, repetition?
Well, it's repetition, but it's also repetition with building confidence in repetition because a lot of times, working on serve receive becomes more of a fear of failure. And so how do you build that up? How do you teach them like if you're only going to coach based off of the result, they're never going to get very good at it. So it's going to have to be the process of are they getting better as how they, lots of young passers are going to deal with more float serve than they are jump serve. So
Yeah.
no float serves come right to you. So how good are you teaching them to open up and move their feet and shuffle around the court and how to get their platform out away from their body and finish to the middle of the court? Like, are you teaching them these things, or are you just getting mad or really happy at the result? So look, it doesn't matter if I was coaching 14-year-old volleyball or coaching the Olympics or all the national championship teams here at Long Beach State or Final Four teams at Long Beach State. The teams that passed the ball or the teams that played in the finals or won the national championship.
Yeah.
And that was last year's team passed the 24 team passed the ball significantly better than the 23 team. Therefore, we were one game better and had a chance to play for a title. This year's team passed the ball very, very well. And you're exactly right when you say that. As much as Moni gets a lot of credit, rightfully so, for a lot of the things that he did all year long, most of that was because of the fact that he had the ball high and tight to the net the majority of the time. And if you look in the finals, almost all of the time.
Yeah.
So credit to Skyler passed amazingly well. And he doesn't get nearly enough credit. And Kellan, a freshman libero who got beat up for a while early on of how he was passing the ball, even though I thought he was doing pretty good. And then I was using a double libero situation, which probably didn't help him a lot at the beginning. But as year went on, he passed the heck out of the ball, and he was great in the finals. And then we had Soterius, who was passing maybe the best of all three of them, and then we lost him for the year. And I thought Alex Kondoff stepped in and passed incredibly well as it went on. So the unit passed great. And I know Moni, because Moni spoke about this at the Final Four, of there's no way he's able to do what he's able to do when you're turning and hitting as a setter, when you're causing as much mayhem because people are concerned you're going to dump or turn and hit, is only because your passers are passing the snot out of the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, back talking about TJ for a second, what do you think makes a great outside hitter at that collegiate level, and how have players like TJ exemplified that. And, also adding on to that, it must feel pretty good. You look at a kid like TJ, not a kid, but, a guy like TJ, and how well he's just propelled himself to the Olympics last year and now wrapping up his season in Japan.
Yeah, well, TJ is very similar to lots of great elite players like that, and that is that TJ was a half a play ahead of most college volleyball players his entire career. And that wasn't necessarily something that happened, his junior or senior year. That was happening from when he was a first year player in our gym. That being said, he was prepped for things. He saw things was about to happen. He had watched tons of video. He was just a complete volleyball junkie. People don't know that side about TJ. Um, the other thing about TJ is that if there was an area he wasn't great in, he became great in that. So if you look at Kobe Bryant, that's pretty similar to what Kobe Bryant did, or
Mm-hmm.
Magic Johnson. We talk about every offseason going to find his weakest skill and trying to work on that, whether it be 3-point shooting at one time for Magic to free throw shooting. So there was parts of TJ's game that need to improve, like every player when he was here, and it did, whether it be serve receive, whether it be consistency with his serve. His blocking got really, really good. But the one thing he was really blessed with was his ability to read the game, see the game, volleyball IQ. He had a great platform. He has a tremendous right arm that he really believes in, and he should. He has a million shots and great vision. And deep down, nobody competes harder. Doesn't mean people can't. It doesn't make TJ elite by himself competitor. What I'm saying is, no, there's not going to be anyone's going to compete harder than TJ. And lots of coaches have had their own ups and downs at different times with TJ, and we all do as coaches. But there's not a team I would coach that I wouldn't have TJ on that team.
Nice.
There's in big matches, big moments, high leverage situations. There's very few people I trust more than Teach.
Nice. And then adding, talking about somebody with a million different shots. Another one that has, I had on recently was Taylor Crabb, and again another one that's, he says he owes everything he has, what he can do today, to what he learned from you at Beach, and that was a kid who was challenged, saying he was too small to hit outside.
Well, that's super gracious of Taylor to say that, but you're talking about one of the great volleyball families of all time. You're talking about growing up in diapers playing volleyball at Outrigger Canoe Club around some of the greats of the game. Uh, Taylor's been playing this game for a long time. He was really, really talented by the time I got him. And you got to remember, I got him in 13 when I came back from the national team. He already played 2 years at Long Beach, so
Oh, okay.
we only had 2 years together. But I think where Taylor really benefited was that when I came back and I assessed the talent that we had and what we needed to do to be successful right away, everything was going to be built around Taylor. And meaning this, I had just got done coaching the USA team, and at that time, Jiba was just kind of finishing his career with Brazil. And I saw Taylor is the same as Jiba to me. Is that here's this guy who can dominate every area of the game. He's going to be the best defensive player if he wants to be. He can pass the ball the best. He could set if he needed to. He's got great range. We can run fast with him. He can set high balls if we needed to. We're going to set him a ton of bic, and we're gonna become this tempo team, but a lot of area six, a lot of bic offense. We're going to set a ton of balls to him, and Dalton Amron was the other one, and Trevor Crabb was on that team as well. I only had Trevor for 1 year, um, but that was where we were going to go. And I think it was exciting for Taylor because there was this great reset in the program. And let's face it, it was around all the strengths that he had.
Yeah.
Um, he he embraced that very much so. I talked to him a lot about, do you want to be the best player on this team, or do you want to be the best player in the country? Because I really believe you can be the best player in the country, not just the best player at Long State. And we had a great year. We got, back then there was only 4 teams to the Final Four, one at large, and we ended up losing in the conference final to go to the Final Four. And he ended up getting Player of the Year, NCAA Player of the Year as a 6'1"
Right.
outside hitter. And but pound for pound, I mean, Taylor Crabb might be not only just one of the best volleyball players we've had at Long Beach State. He might be one of the best volleyball players I've ever been around at any level, including the national team. And his demeanor is 100% the opposite of TJ's. It's all the confidence, all the reading of the game, all those things that I mentioned about great players that like TJ had. But Taylor's attitude was that he very much that Hawaiian attitude. There's not a whole lot of highs, not over the top, but there's very little lows also. It's
Yeah.
just I'm gonna motor along, and I'm not gonna do a whole lot of talking. I'm just gonna do a lot of doing and just kind of do as I do. Let me lead that way, and it's pretty special.
Very cool. For you, over years of coaching, who's been some of the biggest mentors, that you really look back and really owe a lot of your coaching style and who you are today?
Yeah, I think I mentioned early on Mike D'Alessandro. I think your college coaches and Mike was the guy who did a lot of the training in our gym. That's a very formative years. There's some of your very formative years when you look back at it. So Mike has a big input, or had a lot of input on who I became as a coach. I really think that from there, I had some good coaches that I had at different stages along my career, different players that I interacted with. But I think that the way my trajectory went as a head coach, because I didn't spend a lot of time on different benches and around different people, and a lot of was an assistant coach a lot of places. I was head coach at Golden West. I was the assistant coach at Long Beach where I had played for the coach I had played for, and then I was the head coach. So it's not like I had a lot of different people, which I would say to anyone listening, don't take that path. Be around as many people as you can. But in the summers, I got the opportunity to be around different coaches and learn from different people. And I would say a couple of those names would be without a doubt, Doug Beal. Doug was great, way bigger than he probably imagined, just along the road of he was always in the high level position of coaching the national team or different things when I was, getting involved. And I got to spend some time around him when I was young and the junior teams and youth teams. Um, there was a former great coach that coached the U.S. team for a short period of time, but he was also Doug's assistant in '84 named Bill Neville. I got to spend some great time with Bill when he went with me on a couple of trips, and just the amount of information, and just Bill had anything you were thinking about. He had a story or a situation he could talk you
Yeah.
through.
Nice.
Um, yeah, so those would probably be. I know I'm probably leaving a couple out, but those are probably the most impactful ones for me.
All right. And when you see these kids coming from club or high school coming into college, is there anything you wish that the club coaches would focus more on from a skill standpoint? Work more on passing or serving, or something you wish that if you could just put a general announcement out there, clubs, you need to start working on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that by and large, we're behind in a lot of areas. And I think that non-setter setting, I think floor defense for um, guys is a big deal, meaning middles get almost none. So their defense and their ball control is pretty bad
Yeah.
by the time they get to college. And that's not okay. Um, Guys being able to play in area 5 and area 6, not just area 6 if they're an outside hitter, and just area 5 if they're a libero, setting from both of those positions, being able to have a couple of different serves, their jump serve, their jump float, their hybrid, whatever it might be. And then you can go on. That's the most important
Yeah.
ones, is that making sure that usually they get enough swings, but are they getting enough opportunities, touches in practice to improve in their overall volleyball skill level? Can they play the game? And I think that you, as a young player, can you go out on the beach right now and can you play doubles? Or do you avoid it because you know you can't play
Right.
it? If you avoid it because you can't play it, then your skill sets are not where they should be. You don't have to go out there and compete and play to get your ranking or play on the AVP, whatever. I'm not saying that. But if you're avoiding it because you're the black hole of the ball, all the play ends when you contact the
Right.
ball, then you probably need to improve, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, I think there's the overall ball control, the ability to everyone set, play defense, even the basics. Like, do they even know the basic rules of why they are standing where they are. Do they know the overlap rules? Do they know do they know how to go in and out of a 3-man, 4-man serve receive? Or
Yeah.
what happens if you don't want to go 3-man, you only want to go 2-man, it's a float, like who overlaps with who and why? I just don't, like, we get them here and we have to explain that stuff. Like they don't fully understand the rules of our game.
Yep. All right. Excellent. And speaking of serving, I just, I'm curious. Did you ever stand in front of one of Moni's serves and try to pass it?
No. No, there's not only Moni, there's a whole bunch of guys over the last couple of years that there's no way I'm getting out there in front of those things right now.
While I was doing my research on this, I watched one video where you described, keeping the mo, and I have to just share this. Our high school coach, she calls it, we keeping the mojo, and you call it keeping the momentum. I thought
Yeah.
that was kind of cool.
Well, I mean, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's sports in general. How do you either have it or you don't have it? So, right, if you have it, how do you keep it? And if you don't have it, how do you get it back fast?
Yeah.
And that's volleyball players don't realize that when you have it and then all of a sudden you're getting aced or you're over passes or you're missing serves, letting the other team off the hook, you're just handing the momentum back, and it's
Right.
so hard to work for. And if you do have it, how do you continue to keep executing through it and keeping the energy level high? And so there's lots of things that we talk about all the time about momentum, but it's a very simple concept. You either have it or you don't. So how do you keep it, or how do you get it back?
Yeah, absolutely. And now I have a fun question. So I had Eric showed you on a while ago. Him and Taylor Averill have this thing. What's the, toughest position in volleyball? So Alan, what is the toughest position in volleyball?
Hmm.
And let me
Wow.
preface that Mason said it was libero, which
Well, of
probably
course,
doesn't surprise
Mason
you.
said that. That doesn't surprise me at all. I think Mason's right in one area, and that is serve receive is a very, very difficult part of the game, and without
Hmm.
it, nothing happens. But I would say, yeah, it's so easy to say. I mean, it's so easy to just kind of go back to like you have to pass, so it's an outside or a middle because he has to block. He has to split. There's nothing more difficult in the game of volleyball than passing a tough serve
Hmm.
or being a middle blocker when the other team's passing well and have it in a read-based system and have to get to a pin. And then the other one is if you were to ask, Josh Tuniga, Tyler Hildebrand, my son, Aiden, or Moni, whatever, right? Any of the guys who've set for us, um, setting. They're going to tell you setting. And the reason on setting is because when everything's going well, everyone's doing great. And when everything's not going well, the setter's playing horrible. And
Yeah.
there's nothing worse than for a setter is trying to run offense and you're sprinting around the gym the whole day.
Oh, amen. Yep.
And that's what the men's volleyball has turned into, which is a huge weight for the setters of that. They come in with this amazing game plan, but they're never really feel like they're in a decent pass situation.
Yeah.
And that can be difficult, right? So look, they're all really difficult. I'm sure everybody would lean on one on the position kind of they play.
Yeah.
That's why I laugh at Mason saying that, even though I agree with him in the serve receive, because as a guy who played a lot of outside in his day too, passing the ball over time very well is an incredibly difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
So there's no way I'm boxing myself into one position.
All
I
right.
guess I guess if not, I'm going to keep talking myself in one big circle, and we're gonna talk about every position here.
And away from volleyball, what are some of the things you enjoy?
Uh, yeah, well, everything for me is about my family. I mean, so anything I could do with my family, we got a place out in the desert we can go to and
Nice.
get to enjoy time there. Both my boys are athletes, get to watch them do that. My youngest son's also coaching right now. It's a pitching coach in high school. They
Oh,
just
cool.
won the state of California in pitching. I mean, in baseball, that was fun to watch, and Aiden playing overseas. But the other thing is travel. The thing about being in my situation where I've traveled as much as I have, you get to see the world. It's been wonderful, but you get to see the world through a bus window, hotel window, or a gym.
Yeah.
Um, so, when you get the opportunity to go when you're not in a volleyball setting, you really you start to appreciate even more. It's almost like a tease traveling the world as a volleyball coach
Right.
or a player. So, because of my connections with Northern Ireland and growing up in Europe a little bit when I was young and spending so much time over there in summers and being close to my family, um, I really do enjoy that part. I really enjoy getting out there.
Nice.
And
And being a father of an athlete, coaching and playing at a very high level, what's harder out of all three? Watching your kid play, coaching, or playing the sport?
uh, yeah, I don't know. I got to do kind of all of it together at sometimes, but yeah, I think that I anytime you don't have quote unquote kind of control
Yeah.
is harder. So like I think the way I'd answer this is like if you were to watch my wife last year, watches I think we were down 0-2 in the final four to Grand Canyon and came back and won in five. And I can only imagine what that was like. She's got, her son is the starting setter and he's in
Yeah.
his senior year and her husband's the coach. But she has zero control other than just emotion.
Right.
So for me, it didn't feel like that, and I'm sure for Aiden, it didn't feel the same as it did for her. So
Yeah.
because you don't have control, I think it's always more difficult to when you're watching people do things than it is. But I'm at a point right now. I just feel so fortunate enough just to be part of watching anything that they're doing because you think back to those days where you're a million miles an hour, a million
Mm-hmm.
different fields and sports and venues to now where you don't get to see a whole lot of it, where Aiden, I mean, Evan's coaching a lot of times when I'm coaching, and Aiden's on the other side of the world playing. When you get that opportunity, you don't get too caught up in that part anymore. You're just very grateful and fortunate, feel very fortunate you get to do it.
Nice. Well, Coach, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. But before I let you go, like with past guests, I look for you to recommend somebody in your volleyball circle that would have a good story to come on and share.
Yeah, there's a former assistant coach of mine. His name is Greg Vernovich, and he was a spectacular coach. Coached at Pierce Junior College, coached with me, won a national championship at Pepperdine, and left coaching with me to take as a was a guide with groups to summit Everest.
Oh, wow.
And he's done it for about 15, 20 years. So he's retired in that area now and working in Georgia. But just that, and he was also Dane Blanton and Eric Fenoy Moana's beach coach at the Olympics in Sydney when they won the gold medal because he
Oh,
was a
very cool.
teammate of Dane Blanton at Pepperdine's
All right.
at Pepperdine. But I think his story is pretty awesome, and how his mindset through as an athlete, his mindset as a coach would lead him to being able to do some of the extreme things like summiting Everest
Right.
many times.
All right. We'll get him on. And, Coach, again, thank you so much for doing this. It was wonderful to meet you. And have a safe, enjoyable trip to Ireland.
Awesome. Thank